Hello everyone, this is passage number 60 of the Fabula, the building of the good ship Argo. Let's go through this together. Cum tamen colchis multorum dierum iter ab eo loco abesset, solus jason proficisci noluit. First sentence then, cum tamen. However, since, colchis is the nominative here, so it's the subject, since colchis was many days' journey away abesset, so here we've got the causal clause. However, since colchis was many days' journey away from abesset, from absum, I am away. Remember that it is always worth learning all of your various different irregular verbs, such as absum, adsum, all of them obviously taking the form of sum, es, est. The irregular verbs are usually verbs that are so popular in a language, including, for instance, the verb to be in English, that they take on different sort of irregular, they don't follow any particular pattern, they take on different irregular endings. Since colchis was a journey of many days away from that place, abesset, imperfect subjunctive. Jason, noluit, did not want to, proficisci, did not want to advance alone. Proficisci, you could look at there and think to yourself, why does that look like it is a present passive infinitive? Well, it looks like it's present passive because it is a deponent verb, therefore it looks passive but is translated in the active. So Jason did not want or refused to set out solus alone. Igitur dimisit igitur nuntios in omnis partis, qui causam itineris docerent, et diem certam conveniendi dicerent. Therefore he sent out nuntios, messengers, in omnis partis, into all parts, into all areas. Remember the is ending that you have here is an alternative form of es. Therefore, he sent out messengers into all areas, into every place, qui, to docerent, to talk about, to literally to teach the cause itineris of the journey. Qui plus the subjunctive, imperfect subjunctive here, docerent, is going to be the alternative form of the purpose clause using the relative pronoun qui instead of ut. So to teach the reason of the journey, et, and to announce, dicerent, again a continuation here of the purpose clause, and to announce, diem certam, a certain day, a set day, conveniendi, gerund there, of gathering, it is active, so a certain day of gathering together. Conveniendi, you'll notice, isn't agreeing with any word there, so it's not a gerundive, it's not agreeing with anything in there. They were announcing a certain day of gathering. It is active verbal noun, therefore a gerund. Inter ea. Meanwhile, postquam, after. Now, let's look all the way through the sentence and take a minute to do this and see if you can find your main verb. So, a long Latin sentence like this, you need to figure out what is going to be the main verb. So, inter ea. Meanwhile, postquam, after. Now, omnia, you could think, well, that might well be the subject. Let's look for our main active verb, which is going to be jusit. Now that can't be the case. Omnia has to be plural, therefore it can't be governing jusit. Jusit is singular. Therefore, are there any other words there that could be the subject? There are not. So let's put in our subject, or take the subject from the verb itself, jusit. So you can just hear my little daughter Nell squeaking in the background. Don't let that put you off your more important Latin. Meanwhile, after he jusit, after he ordered, omnia. So let's take the subject from within the verb. After he ordered all of the things, quae, which, sunt, are of use, ad armandas navis. Armandas is describing the navis. So, after he ordered all of the things which are of use for ships being armed. Armandas agreeing with navis, therefore it is going to be a gerundive. All of the things which are of use for ships being armed. Because it's plural, that means it must be a gerundive rather than a gerund. Gerund is by its nature singular. So after he ordered all of the things which are of use for ships to be armed, he dedit, he gave the job, he gave the duty or the job here to a quidam, the pronoun there, quidam, to a certain, lots of people forget that, to a certain argus, qui, who, habebat, had the summam scientiam, who had the utmost knowledge of nauticarum rerum, of of naval science, of naval affairs, sorry, who had the utmost knowledge, genitive of nauticarum, of naval affairs, ut, to build the ship. So he gave the job to Argus, ut, to build the ship. Why is aedificaret in the imperfect subjunctive? Well, I'll tell you why. It comes from the dedit negotium, he gave the job. Imagine the giving the job as being an order. He ordered Argus to aedificaret, to build the ship. He gave the job to Argus to build the ship. It is therefore an indirect command. Lots of different uses of the subjunctive in this passage. It's great for that. In his rebus circitur decem dies consumpti sunt. So, in these affairs, around 10 days were consumed. Now that's almost more in its very literal translation, so let's turn it around so it sounds a little bit better. So, approximately 10 days, consumpti sunt, perfect passive, were consumed in these affairs. Around 10 days were consumed in these affairs. Argus enim, for Argus, qui, who was in charge of the job, qui operi praerat, who was in charge, remember it's not praefuerat, it's praerat, so the imperfect, who was in charge of the job, adhibebat, was exhibiting, I suppose you could say, tantam diligentiam, such diligence. As soon as I see this word tantam, I'm looking for a subjunctive, which I will find over here, intermitteret. For he was exhibiting such diligence that, intermitteret, subjunctive, this is going to be a result clause governed by the trigger word tantam. He exhibited such diligence that that neither night time, that he did not, that not even night time interrupted his work. So, he exhibited such diligence that not even night time, intermitteret, was interrupting his work, was an interruption for his work. So we've got there intermitteret is the subjunctive because it is a result clause. Ad multitudinem hominum transportandum navis Paulo erat latior quam quibus in nostro mari uti consuemus, et ad vim tempestatum perferendam tota e robore facta est. Okay, let's look through here again. And again, just like we had in the earlier sentence, you need to look for your main verb first. Now, the main verb I can see here is erat. So, navis is the subject of it. The ship was, Paulo, was a little bit, latior, comparative, nominative, was a little bit wider. As soon as I see that comparative, what do we think it's going to be followed by? Well, a quam, than. Now, you might expect the quibus to be nominative, but it's not. Bear with me for a second. The ship was a little bit wider than we consuemus, than we are accustomed, uti, to use, than those which we are accustomed. So the quibus is actually governed by the uti, than those which we are accustomed to use. Uti going in the dative, taking the dative therefore, in nostro mari, in our sea. Ad multitudinem, and now we have again this transportandam for the transporting of a crowd of people. That is a long and difficult sentence, and let's go through it all again. So again, remember this gerundive is the passive, and agreeing with it. So the here the ship was, so the ship is the first subject, navis. The ship was, Paulo, by a little, was a little wider, quam quibus, than those which consuemus, we are accustomed, uti, to use in our sea, ad, for the transportandam, literally for a multitudinem, for a crowd, hominum of people, transportandam, to be transported. Transportandam there is the gerundive that we've got, transportandam, agreeing with the multitudinem. So the ship was wider for the crowd of people to be transported. So you've got there this passive gerundive. Et, and, it facta est, perfect passive, and it was made, tota erobore, completely from oak, completely from oak, ad vim tempestatum perferendam, literally for the strength of a storm to be taken on. Perferendam, again passive, therefore again a gerundive rather than a gerund. So, and it was made completely out of oak for the purpose of the strength of a storm to be, what's the word that I'm looking for? Perferendam, to be literally to be taken, to be suffered, to be allowed. And it was made completely out of oak in order, let's say withstand would be good. In order to withstand, let's turn it from actually being passive into active because it sounds better. In order to withstand the strength of a storm. Sounds good. Remember that often it's quite useful in Latin to translate it first of all grammatically correct and then to change it around so that it sounds a little bit better. And it was made completely out of oak, literally to withstand the strength of a storm. And that is the translation of the building of the good ship Argo. I'm just going to go back for 1 second to again reiterate this fact that when you in Latin have a very difficult and long sentence, one of the things that you want to do is figure out first of all who the subject is. And you can do that by finding the main verb, and then you would, for instance, in this sentence here, the interea sentence, so meanwhile, find your main verb, jussit, then, once you've got that, you can think to yourself, okay, I need to find the subject. That's the primary thing I need to do, find the subject of my sentence. Now, in order to find the subject, look for your main verb, which therefore needs to be an indicative verb, rather than a subjunctive verb. If it's subjunctive, it's not going to be the main verb. So you've got your main verb, the jussit, then all that you need to do is find the subject that governs it. Well, the only word here that really could be, I suppose you could think navis might have been, but the fact that navis is following armandas means that it probably agrees with this gerundive armandas, agreeing with the navis, the alternative form of the es, as we've said before. So what you want to do there is get your main verb, then it will tell you which word, and it will tell you, because jussit is singular, that omnia cannot be governing it. Therefore, because we can't find it, we need to know that it's the subject of the previous sentence. It's the he. Meanwhile, he ordered, after he ordered everything, all the things which are of use for a ship to be armed. And if you do that right, then it will make a lot of your Latin sentences even more easy. Hope that you're all having a wonderful holiday, folks, and I will speak to you soon.